Hello and welcome to our weekly IG Live. Today we are going to be talking to the author of a book that has been getting a lot of buzz, and that is Aloha Everything. We are going to be talking to the author, Kaylin Melia George, and she's going to be telling us all about the inspiration behind the book and why it's so important to have this book that celebrates Hawaiian culture and history and heritage. Hello.
Hello.
So great to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me and for the warm welcome.
Yes, absolutely. And that's not a stretch to say that this is a book that's been getting a lot of buzz. I feel like I see it all over Instagram and Facebook. And so I'm really excited to talk to you about it. It's gorgeous. I am lucky to have a copy of it. And so I'll just show a few spreads and I'll show a few more later because you really just, I think the story itself is great and the artwork is really amazing, that it's gotten such a wonderful response from people on Kickstarter. But let's back up first and just tell us a little bit about the book and what was the inspiration behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you so much for all of your kind words. Honestly, the response that we have found after releasing Aloha Everything has been more than we ever could have hoped or imagined. Everyone has been just incredibly kind, and the outpouring of support we've received has really been unbelievable. So first of all, thank you so much to everyone. Thank you to everyone for the support. Thank you so much to Makeaway Media, who has been communicating with us from the very beginning of our release and has been super supportive from the beginning. So it's incredible. Mahalo. And to talk a little bit about Everything and the inspiration for the story, I'll definitely say that when I was young, I loved my bedtime stories. My parents could never get me to go to sleep because I always just wanted another story, and I was always keeping them up, and they were always having to think of more stories to entertain me with. And so I think when I was young, my parents gave me all the classics. They gave me Humpty Dumpty, they gave me Cinderella, but also I had the classics from my mother's side of the family. And my mother, she grew up on the Hawaiian Islands on Molokai, and she told me the stories of the first of all, of her growing up on the islands and what it was like with her family and kind of getting in and out of mischief with her siblings and her cousins, and also telling me about the legends and the folklore of the islands, which was incredible to me. And I really very vividly recall those memories being some of my strongest and most vibrant childhood memories. And so it was always something that was really special to me, always something that meant a lot to me. And I recognized from a pretty young age that the stories that my mother was telling me, they didn't seem to exist in books, on bookshelves of my classrooms or my libraries. So I recognized from a pretty young age that wasn't, that there was a gap there. And I thought it would be amazing to try to bring these stories to the world and try to bring the stories that my mother told me to life.
That's one. Well, I'm so glad that you did. I mean, I think that's a really great story that you saw this need and you said, you know what, I'm gonna do something about that. You know, a lot of us might recognize it, but you actually stepped up to do something about it. And can you talk a little bit more about what that means to you, like what that need was that you were trying to fill for kids who have Hawaiian ancestry, you know, who've grown up on the island, why it's important for them, but why it's important for everybody to learn these stories.
Yeah, absolutely. So in 2019, the CCBC released a special report that was the first time that they ever specifically recognized how much representation there was in children's literature for Pacific Islander stories and voices. And what was revealed was that it is the least represented group that they currently recognize, and every year so far, it's been less than 0.05% of children's literature represents Pacific Islander stories and characters. So that number drops even more if you take a look at how many of those stories were created by Pacific Islander peoples. And so it's definitely a gap that exists. And as I mentioned, I think that I kind of knew that from when I was young, just by feeling it. But it wasn't until 2019 that I had that number really specifically. And I thought, you know what, it would be amazing to really do something about this. And to speak a little bit to why I think that representation really matters, and why I think it's important for kids to see themselves represented in books. I would say that for me, for myself, my own personal journey, my own personal experience, when I was young, I remember feeling like I didn't see very many families in TV or in movies or in books that looked like my family. And it does make you feel a little wondering, you know, why is that, right? And so I think that for me, for Aloha Everything, a big goal that we had was that we wanted for students and for kids and keiki who are growing up on the islands, that they can read the book and they feel like they see something of themselves represented, that they feel that there's something truthful to the experience of growing up on the islands. And I think that's really important because it shows students that people care about their stories, that people care about their families, which is super vital. But also for the students and the children who are not growing up on the islands, it's still, I think, really crucial because it's a part of, you know, showing kids about new things, showing kids about new places and new cultures and new experiences that teaches them, sort of gives them the opportunity to learn about empathy and learn about respect. So I think that I think representation is important for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, and I also love that you bring up that report, which was so groundbreaking, and also your point about how the representation is not very much to begin with, but then a lot of it, then you have to look at who's writing and who's telling these stories, which is also really important. Like you say, to have that authenticity that'll ring true for the kids who are reading it. And I was wondering, so when you decided, okay, you wanted to have representation and you wanted to share these stories, what made you decide to do it as fiction versus nonfiction? Because, right, you could have just written a book of, I don't know, folk tales or a book of history, right, and yet you've decided, I should mention for those who haven't read it, it's a story about a girl who's learning about all of this. And so it's about the stories and themselves, but also about her journey. So what made you decide to do it that way?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, firstly, I would just say, you know, a huge thank you to my mother for, you know, giving these stories to me, because these are her stories, right? That I didn't grow up on the islands personally. My mother did. So these are stories that I'm trying to pass down from her and to also pass down to the next generation. And that is also, you know, ties into this idea of, you know, why do fiction? And I think that a big inspiration that we had was that when I first met our illustrator, her name is Melia. She's amazing, crazy talented, crazy kind. She's a wonderful person. When I first met her and I saw her art, I saw that there was something that was so incredible and whimsical about her work that really feels like you are walking into a world of imagination. And I was thinking about how children have the best imaginations in the world, and I wanted the book to feel genuine and truthful to the experiences of the islands, but also to feel like, as a little kid, when you're reading it, that you're kind of walking into the imagination of a child, that you're being immersed by the whimsical elements and by the rich and vibrant beauty of these folk tales, that you're sort of inside of them, right? That you're experiencing it. So that was a big part of the inspiration for why we decided to go with a fictional story.
I love that. And yes, you have to talk about the illustrations because they are so amazing. Yeah. This is something you could just have like as a coffee table book just for the art, you know?
Yeah, we wanted something that felt it felt truthful, but it also feels whimsical and fantastical, and, you know, just like you're walking into a fairy tale.
Yeah, it feels very like larger than life when you have the book. And I also was wondering, so it's about this girl and she's learning about the history and the culture and so on, and kind of the unifying element, I guess, if you want to say that, is the hula dance. She's doing this as she's learning the hula. And that's something that's so misunderstood, I think, in popular culture. Why did you decide to do that? Were you kind of trying to like dispel some of the ideas about the hula, or was it just because that is something that's that is a way that stories and culture are passed down? What was your thought there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I knew from the beginning that I wanted this story to be about a young girl who is learning about her home, and she's coming to understand more about herself as she grows. And that a large part of that is the fact that for me creating this book, I was going through that experience because like I said, I didn't grow up on the islands. I grew up with these stories, but having the opportunity to write this book meant that I started having these conversations with my family. I started having conversations with people on the islands, asking questions and doing research. I had the incredible opportunity to speak to members of the Hula Preservation Society, to speak to cultural advisors, to speak to even Kumu Hula, and that was breathtaking to me, and it taught me so much about myself, about my family that I didn't know before, which has been first of all, one of the most amazing blessings of creating this story, but also you know, I knew that I wanted this character to be going through a little bit of that for herself, that she's learning about her island home as she grows, that it's to a certain extent a coming of age story. And I knew that there would be no better way to do that than through this story of connecting her to hula, because hula is such an important part of Hawaiian history. And it is, of course, it is a dance form, it is an art form, but it also is so much more than a dance form, because it is the way that the Hawaiian people have passed on knowledge and wisdom and histories from generation to generation. Hula dances represent they represent lineages sometimes, they represent histories, they represent stories, they represent sometimes talking about natural phenomenons. And so she's really learning about all these different elements that I wanted to bring to the book. I wanted to talk about the land, I wanted to talk about the people, I wanted to talk about the legends. And no better way than through hula, which naturally discusses all of these topics and more. So I just thought it was a really wonderful way to tie in all the things that we wanted to talk about, and to also show a natural progression of a protagonist who's learning and growing and going on a journey.
I love that, because it really does. I mean, you feel like you're learning along with us, but like you said, having it done through the hula, it kind of brings it all together. And otherwise, you know, what might seem like really separate pieces of information, it just kind of brings it all together so seamlessly. And I was thinking that I was actually going to ask you that whether that was like your journey, whether this felt like, because, you know, you mentioned learning about it through your mother, but then you've been doing additional research, whether that felt like this was really like a reflection of your own personal journey. I love that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We've been working on this book now for about 3 years, and about the first year and a half was specifically in that research phase, specifically learning as much as possible so that we could make the book as good as we could make it. Now, of course, you can't ever fit, you know, as much as you would like to in 48 pages. It's only a very tiny slice, a very tiny slimmer, a very small glimpse into the beauty and the richness and the variety of what exists on the islands, but we wanted to make sure that we were, you know, putting in the time to make sure that it was everything that we could make it in 48 pages.
Yeah, it's amazing. It packs in a lot, but it doesn't feel like that when you're reading it. You know, it flows really well. But I'm wondering, when you were doing all this research, was there something, you know, you've grown up with these stories, but then you're kind of learning more yourself. Was there what's something that really surprised you, or something that you think other people are really surprised to learn about? Because we all have this kind of image about Hawaii from popular culture.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think is something that people are really missing, or maybe that you didn't even know about?
Oh yeah. So I mean,
Sorry,
I think, you know, something that you've
this question ahead of time. It just kind of
popped
into my head.
No, it's all good. I mean, there's so many things, so many incredible things that I learned. I think for myself personally, I was learning a lot about the Hawaiian language that I previously didn't know. And I think that I have always known that the language was incredibly beautiful and incredibly rich. But to me, something that was very interesting is learning how frequently Hawaiian words have sort of, it's hard to explain, but when Hawaiian words sort of have connections. They're very poetic. The Hawaiian language is very poetic, and they have intense and deep connections between different words and between their usages, that many words can be used in many ways. Like, for example, aloha is frequently used as a greeting or as a goodbye, but it also can mean in a lot of contexts love or respect or great care. We say aloha aina, that means to care for the love or care for the earth and care for the land. And I see so frequently, because of trying to create the book and writing it in poetry, I saw how incredibly poetic the Hawaiian language already is, which is incredible, and learning about all of the many meanings of words. There's one line in the book where I talk about the young girl having kukui nut eyes, and that is a reference to actually multiple different things in the Hawaiian language, because in the Hawaiian language, kukui is the name for a tree that bears nuts that are like very round brown nuts. So, when you hear kukui nut eyes, your first thought might be, oh, well, she has, beautiful brown eyes. But also the word kukui, because historically those nuts were used as a source of oil, and the oil was burned in lamps. It also is a homonym for lamp, right? So you're also potentially referring to the young girl having, really bright, adventurous, wide open, curious eyes. So you're kind of describing that she has brown eyes, but also describing that she has bright eyes. And so I think this journey has been incredible for me, learning things about the poetic nature of the Hawaiian language that I didn't know before, and using that as an opportunity to try to encase that as much as I can into my writing has been a really special experience for me.
That's so beautiful. And I love how you've really taken care to mix in a lot of Hawaiian words into the text. And this is one reason I think that the book works so well for different ages. It's great for young kids because they'll love the pictures, and the text, I think, is easy for them to follow along. But there's a glossary at the back, and I'm trying to flip to the page as I'm talking. But there's an information about the Hawaiian language that my oldest son he went straight to that. I was like, you need to read this, because he always loves learning about languages. So there's a pronunciation guide, just kind of a note about different parts of the language. Like I said, there's so much information packed into this book. But I want to here's a little bit, because we're coming up to the end, but we have to talk about the business side of this, because this channel we talk a lot to potential authors or aspiring authors, and your Kickstarter has been amazing. I mean, I've seen a lot of authors do Kickstarters, and some have been successful. I don't think I've ever seen one as successful as yours. You started off with a goal, and the Kickstarter is still going, right? It's still
going. Yes, we're halfway through, actually. Today is halfway.
Wait, and yet you're just miles past what the goal was.
And so
can you talk a little bit about that experience? Where what do you think it was that resonated with people? Any tips you have for people who are thinking about doing a Kickstarter? How that worked for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I'll just say thank you so much to the community who have made all of this possible. As you've mentioned, the Kickstarter has far exceeded our expectations. We passed our initial goal within the first 2 hours, and we since then have passed our goal times more than six times, and we also have just passed over 500 backers, which is an incredible landmark for us. And we're only halfway through the campaign, and our momentum keeps going because of all the incredible support that we've seen from people. So it's really incredible, and we just cannot say thank you enough to the community for all of the support. To speak a little bit as to why it is that we selected Kickstarter. So first of all, Kickstarter really has an incredible, vibrant community of people who are, really wonderful and excited to be finding, basically new content, right? That's sort of what Kickstarter is for. And there are sort of two kinds of projects on Kickstarter. One kind of project is a project that needs funding in order to be created, right? They say, this is our fundraising goal, and if we get to that goal, then we can create this product. Aloha Everything isn't that kind of project. It's a different kind of project where essentially we're using Kickstarter as a means of pre-sales or pre-orders, I should say, giving people the opportunity to express that they would like a book, and then that allows us to decide how many books we should print. And luckily for us that we did this, because we had so many more orders than we could have anticipated, which shows why pre-orders are very important. Because if we had launched directly to sales before doing pre-orders, we would have drastically undercounted how many we should print. So I do, recommend pre-orders in some way. I mean, of course, it's not the right, all books are different. It's not the right fit for everybody. But if you're in a similar situation where you're not certain how many orders you might receive, it's great to use a platform like Kickstarter as a means of demonstrating pre-orders to see how much interest there is, so you know how many books to begin printing. Now, of course, this is only the beginning, because after this, Aloha Everything will open for retail, and then it will be printing multiple mini runs, right? But it's really just about anticipating that first run. So that's been super helpful. As far as any tips or tricks, I would just say that when it comes to Kickstarter, it's really, and any pre-sale platform, and really any promotion of your book, it's just important to know, I think, what your story is, and kind of always giving tonally, not only through your promotional materials, but even just through the look of your materials, to be providing a sense of the tonality of the story. We kind of try to create, our Kickstarter, our social media, we try to make everything look the way that Aloha Everything looks, that it's all like super bright and colorful and vibrant. It gives a feeling to the story. It has a lot of the hand-painted artwork, so people can get a feeling for what it is that they are looking at and see if they're interested in it, right? Because you want all of your materials to match what your product is, so people feel like, oh yeah, that was what I wanted, and that's what I got. So that's the only the main advice I would give.
Yeah, that makes sense, because I think you guys have done a really amazing job with the social media. And like you said, it exactly matches the book. Like when I had seen it on social media and you use the artwork, it all fits together. Like you said, it matches what I ended up getting, the hard copy that I got. And you are just brought into that really magical, whimsical world that you described earlier. So I would just mention that too, that the promotional materials that you had, it seemed like you guys had a lot of different material that was ready to go as soon as the campaign started, that you've been drawing from. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been working on the book for about 3 years, so we've been preparing for a very long time for the release, and it's been more than we ever could have hoped for. And especially thank you to you and to so many other people who have made this possible by sharing about us. 'Cause at the end of the day, it's really been about word of mouth for us. It's really been about sharing with people and getting people to talk about it, which has been amazing that people have responded so positively to it, and so many kind people like yourself have helped us to get the word out, basically let people know that it exists. And I've always believed in this book. I believe so strongly in it, and I think I just wanted people to know, hey, it exists, and this is what it is. And I think that as long as people see it, there are people that connect with it, and as long as people are connecting with it, then I feel like we've done something really good. So
definitely, it is so beautiful, and makes it easy, or makes our work easy, because it's so easy to promote it, because it's just really, really beautiful. And I'm also curious, so just to wrap things up, what is next? So you mentioned you're halfway through the Kickstarter, then it'll go to retail. Do you think that you'll eventually do another book? Or are you just going to focus on this one? What's the next steps for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do plan for the book to eventually be available retail. We do have hopes of being able to hopefully get the book into bookstores, into libraries, and we have had conversations that have been very promising in those directions. And as far as for my future, I absolutely would love to create more books. And May, who is the incredible illustrator behind Aloha Everything, she has expressed interest in partnering together again and collaborating again. It's really been the most amazing collaboration working with her. She is so incredible, and I think we could with the incredible communication and the incredible partnership that we have, I think we could make a lot more books together. We have been talking about potentially our next book. So of course, we have to focus on Aloha Everything for now, but we think there will be future books. Yeah.
Oh, that's so exciting. Such a great collaboration that I look forward to that. And thank you. Best of luck on the rest of the Kickstarter campaign, and we'll look for when it's out on retail also. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having us. It's been incredible, and we really appreciate all of the support that you've provided, and thank you to everybody for watching.
Yes, and again, that's Aloha Everything. You can go to the link in our bio to find the Kickstarter, so you can also be part of that, the pre-sales for the book. Thanks everybody for watching. Bye.
Bye.